Hi, everyone. Welcome to Figuring Out Fabric, where I ask dumb questions and you get smart answers. And here I've got Juliana Smith to talk to us about user experience, accessibility, and Power BI in general. She's been working with Power BI since 2020. She's been a IT chartered professional for 15 years. So,
But I have more than 15 years experience and chartered. It was a time
oh, okay.
later on.
Gotcha. Well, I'm excited to have you on. I don't think chartered professional is a thing in the US. So what is a chartered IT professional?
So a chartered professional is they have like institutions. He is the British Computer Society, and they had standards in terms of ethical standards and uh skills and knowledge. And then they had different levels, like equivalent to an entry level professional, and then equivalent to like a senior professional, someone who got who impacts, he got some leadership and impact saying different areas, different domains of IT. So I am on the IT level, that's the highest before becoming a fellow. That is more like you have a much richer a bigger reach and impact in your community than chartered mainly as a professional other than community impact.
Gotcha. Yeah, in the US it's pretty well, in the US it's kind of just the Wild West, right? And
It presumes the same. I can't translate it to Brazilian Portuguese. It's like, what does it mean? I'm not entirely sure. Can try to explain, but because in Brazil we have different systems, so it's very difficult to explain. So you can skip the charter. That's fine.
no, it's interesting. So you started with Power BI about 5 years ago. What caused you to get into Power BI and start working with it?
Yeah, so I actually started my career in data science. So my background is in physical oceanography, and I started with MATLAB. Actually, started Fortran 77, and then I went to MATLAB to work with ocean data, so current data, tides, and meteorological data. And I worked for a big research project, and I got scores and then moved. So I don't want to be sat in a computer in front of a computer every day. You know, like, it's just getting boring. And I moved to the oil and gas industry. So I first worked supervising directional drilling operations, and then I moved to become a marine seismic navigator, which was what I really wanted to do. And I suppose there was no MATLAB, but I had to do a little bit of VBA, and there was a lot of Excel and some specific softwares. But it's always about data because we are acquiring data, and the only difference at the time was positioning and dynamic positioning data was responsible for. And then I had an injury, and I had a 2 year career break. And then at the time, I entered the UK and was like, there is no ocean where I live. I can't be a navigator. I can't be an oceanographer. What am I going to do? And I ended up getting into something completely different. Was managing contractors in the workplace for Deloitte. And then COVID hit just a couple months after I joined. I was reassigned to work with someone else. There was a lot of work in Excel. And that's when I learned about Power Pivot. And then from Power Pivot, I went to Power BI. So I'm right, yeah, that's what I want. And I quit my job, started to be able to actually use professionally at Power BI, not only as training projects. Done 3 a.m.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm curious if you have any thoughts on when data science was like the cool hotness like a decade ago. Because there was definitely a period where I thought, oh, maybe I'll pivot into it. And the thing that I kind of realized is I was going to need way more statistics knowledge to be able to double check my stuff. Because I think a lot of the basics you can pick up, but it's making sure that you're not just making a bunch of gibberish and polynomial regressions that are overfitted or whatever. That becomes kind of difficult, you know.
I think so. I think there is a lot of foundation before you even open a computer, and we can't skip that foundation. And for me, I actually considered, okay, I'm going to go data science because of my background. It was overwhelming for me because I was just like, okay, I haven't used MATLAB in a long time. And the time was very similar to Python. I tried to do Python, and but I had a child at the time. He was a toddler, right? He was under two, and it was so difficult to actually concentrate. I managed to learn SQL, but I couldn't get into Python, and that's like I think at the moment I don't have the mindset to get back to data science. And the other major issue I had in the UK, it was I would have to pay the university fees for international students, and the U oh, because and I was like, I will refuse to pay this. Um, and then, because I considered, getting a master's, but it was just way too expensive, without a scholarship. I was like, "Yeah, no."
Yeah, there's definitely for a while, I was like, "Oh, maybe I should go back to school, get my master's," but every year I'm in this career, the opportunity cost gets worse, and as a consultant myself, like, there's no real benefit to having a master's, like, honestly, at a certain point, like, a lot of the credentialing doesn't even matter in the sense that it is extremely rare for anyone to ask me for my resume. And no one's ever asked me about certifications that I have or anything like that. Like it can still be beneficial for learning, but it is kind of uh, it's kind of weird with consulting where it's sort of a Wile E. Coyote kind of situation where you run off the cliff, and as long as you don't look down, you're fine.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to explain people how to get to that point. So yeah.
But for me, it's even more extraordinary because where I'm from in Brazil, depending on the degree you had at university, you cannot do that. It's very, very, there's a big control what you can do. For example, you cannot be called an engineer unless
Mhm.
at the university you had an engineering
Oh,
role.
sure.
But there are loads of things, and then as an oceanographer, I could not sign certain, I don't know, reports because it's only a biologist or an engineer because those professions will kind of protected by an organization. I think if I go back to Brazil now, I would maybe I wouldn't be able to do what I currently do, even knowing that I have the experience, but because it's not actually my academic background, it could be an issue. And I think, well, who cares if I have a degree in oceanography? I mean, it helped me because I learned a bit of the foundation coding, a bit of statistics, and it does help you to get started with, I think, any kind of data related uh, program. Because I think program is the same thing, right? The way that you think about when you're going to code something, it doesn't matter what language it is. It's the kind of same thought process. I mean, on M, like I completely, it's split apart.
M and DAX are domain specific languages, and they're both very weird.
It's funny because it's one of my things that I think DAX is, it's amazing, but at the same time, it is a nightmare. You can get things so wrong. Um, and then if you try to have that thing of context, and I can't think of anything similar that I've seen before because it's not so subjective, and DAX is so subjective because it's there, but it's not there.
Yeah, no, the you don't there's so much more stuff you have to keep in your head, but also, like, unlike a lot of other languages, the smallest little change to the code has huge ramifications for the end result, and so it's almost, like, a little chaotic in that way, whereas, if you're writing a line of C# or something like that, it's rare that a single line of code just cascades through everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you Good.
Have a funny relationship with DAX, but I try to be open minded. I don't mind, right? I do, but I always have a little bit. Oh, I know when I'm gonna have a bad day.
Yeah. So you got into Power BI about 5 years ago, kinda by multiple accidents, it sounds like. So what kinda stuff do you focus on, or what's your s area of expertise?
So I do. I would say that it'll be our area of expertise that are kind of trying to improve all the time. So I try to focus. It's something that I realized that I had a bad experience in the past in terms of accessibility, and I think that really kind of was a big shift in mindset. I really worry about data quality as well, but as important is how I'm going to convey that insight, how I'm going to convey that the data to my users. So, parallel to, of course, getting better understanding backs and M. So M is my 2025 objective. It's my resolution. So I'm really hard to get more into M, and there are very cool things I managed to do, and I'm really happy. Um, But I think accessibility has been a big thing for me. And I decided, well, we have the WCAG standard. So that's what we use the visual accessibility. And okay, I'm going to do something about it. And I decided to learn and see how we can translate that into Power BI or even Power Platform products, Power App. Because there are a few concepts they can use Power App, Power BI. So that has been my focus in the last 18 months. Uh, and that's how I kind of came across Elena's blog or story, and then it was really refreshing to see someone also worry about that.
Yeah, we'll put her in the show notes along with, Megan Longoria because she's talked a lot about that kinda stuff.
Yeah.
So, if people wanna start thinking more about accessibility, in Power BI, what kinda stuff should they be considering?
So I think well, it's really funny because you see amazing tutorials or amazing dashboard. You just like, oh, that looks so sleek. That's amazing. And they are the least accessible report you can possibly see because remove all the titles, the labels, everything. The color scheme usually is not great. So to have an access, just think about don't hide information because it may be obvious for you or someone who has domain knowledge. But if you have a new starter, if you have someone who may need a little bit more of context to understand, you've taken that away. Not to mention screen readers, for example, that we may not work very often with people who rely entirely on screen readers, but once you start taking away those elements, it makes things really
Right. Yeah, that's always a challenge for me with the motivation piece for accessibility because, I don't know if I've ever met anyone, or at least I certainly haven't explicitly talked to someone who uses a screen reader, especially for the Power BI stuff. But one of the things that's interesting, you've probably seen this, but, Microsoft, I'm forgetting the name. They've got a PDF, it's like the accessibility toolkit or something like that, but it's got a persona. I'll put the link in there, but it's got a persona kinda map, and what's interesting, what really helped with me a lot is they show about how impairments can range from, permanent situation or very temporary,
really, yeah.
and that was helpful for me because, um, so yes, someone may have maybe blind and need the keyboard shortcuts, but someone may also just be cradling a baby at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
And so they're working one-handed, and anything you can do to make things easier helps them.
Maybe it's just a bad light, your screen's not great. So even if you think beyond that, right, what is your circumstance?
The
What
role Yeah.
affectability, you will naturally address those circumstances as well.
Yeah, so understanding that, like, there are stuff that's more situational, I think helps a lot with the motivation. You talk about the screen and the lighting and stuff, so, the funniest story I have related to that was I was presenting at a SQL Saturday, and, um, they had rented the space at a hotel, but they didn't pay for the AV package. So they had to provide their own, like, projector, uh, the sheet that it goes against, whatever you call it, I forget. But the thing is, they cheaped out. So they got, like, the cheapest projectors at Best Buy, which is fine, but then on the wall was pinned functionally the equivalent of a bed sheet. Like, I don't know what it was, and so everything was just washed out, and so if you know, it was pretty rough. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
very people now using more and more their mobile phones. But if you're gonna look in there, it can be so ethical. Like I've given up upgrading on my phone a few things because I feel like not even with my glasses, right? I'm not. I appreciate I'm getting old and I'm needing more of my glasses, but it's so difficult for minor things. So we have to start changing the mindset. It's just like you naturally go to Power BI, you add or labels, your access label, everything font number size number 9. The smaller you can go, you do. Besides, it's horrible. That's the worst can possibly happen. And then you start increase your canvas size, and that looks even smaller. So we have to sort of think about okay, let's instead of say we have to use size 10, let's talk about proportion, right? Because we're gonna change your canvas size. Naturally, you're gonna have to change your font size as well.
Yeah, I think the defaults tend to be a little bit small, especially back when it was, like, 8 or whatever, it's just tiny.
Just don't. it's not, and it's so difficult. So I did a user interface certification, and I have to build prototypes in Figma. And I knew all of these accessibility. I knew the WCAG, and I'm gonna create my prototypes. And the prototype for a smartphone, I could not use a font larger than 12 points. So I did, even knowing that it's not accessible, but I used hand because I couldn't fit everything in. So it is really difficult. I think when you start thinking about, okay, let's start reducing the size of the screen, things get really complicated.
Yeah. Well, and I think, new report developers are pretty bad about white space in general. You would think that they're paying per pixel, and so they try to cram as much information as possible. And if you know how to make use of kind of these supplementary features like report tooltips and drill throughs, you don't have to cram everything in there at once. And so as you get more comfortable with that, you get more comfortable with having more breathing room, using larger fonts, all that stuff.
Yeah, or even having more tabs in your report. You don't need to. It's just, and that's really difficult. I started, I wouldn't think about that. And when I started, so I had no damage on my hands. When I got back to work, I was using a normal mouse, which I lost mobility and dexterity in my hands. I couldn't align anything with a normal mouse. And I was absolutely terrified just speaking to my line manager and say, I cannot do my job perfectly because my hands are not great.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm gonna be fired. So I spent 2 years like I am horrible. How I'm gonna do? And then one day I was in tears, and I'm gonna have to say something. And then they said, "Why didn't you say before? We can get you a special mouse." And then I can see the massive difference it made in my life just to have a mouse that helps me. And then you start thinking, oh, now imagine just the font type, right? We like to use these fancy font families. They're not great. The same thing that for me, I changed a mouse. It was £20 more expensive, but it just completely changed. I'm better mood when I wake up and I have to do. Oh, it's tuning, fine tuning. I don't mind anymore. Uh, but if we could understand the big impact and very small change make and who actually need. So I can talk about the difference that the mouse, that the impact was for me. I can kind of understand, okay, high screen rate is going to be really important for someone who may need it, but it's very difficult to put myself in the person's situation. So I will never fully comprehend what it is. I have software that's screen reader friendly with all the alternative packs, and I have software that's not that great. So I think it's very difficult to fully understand that unless you go for some similar situation. Um, so I try my best to adapt, and most importantly, to speak to people and try to understand. Okay, from your perspective, right? We are different. We have different needs. From your perspective, what do you think is important? How can I address some sort of pain points? So, for example, alternative sex for me is really difficult because somehow you're gonna limit, right, what the person's gonna take away from that insight. And that's why I don't think there is one answer fits all. You need to understand who is using the screen readers, what kind of insights they need, so you can tailor to that specific person. Perhaps you will need a different tool to give the insight. Perhaps Power BI wouldn't be the best option. So we have to start thinking as well, right? It's not one tool for everybody. Sometimes it's not. Um, and as much as I hate people say, can I export to Excel? When you provide an alternative format, while also, being more inclusive because people may process information differently. So, even that, I'm trying to, okay, no, yes, okay, you can, I try not to feel so offended if someone after afraid or with all this amazing interactive dashboard, all right, I need an export. I try to think that maybe there is a reason behind that. And on my experience, people don't put their hands up to say, oh, yeah, I can't see. So that, but I worked with someone who was colorblind. It was a very simple, it was a column chart in Excel and it was using red or by gray, right? And I thought the guy gave me a hard time. It was like, every week you will message me, oh, what's happening? And then after 6 months, I'm like, right, can you open the file? Yeah, 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 I can open the file. But can you open now? Yeah, 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 it's open. What is the difficulty? And he said, I'm really sorry, but I can't see the difference between the colors. I'm colorblind. And that was so hard because I consider that everything bad about him, right? He's making my life difficult.
Right, right.
And it wasn't. It was none of that. It was just something that I couldn't even never expect that there is something behind it. I always think, oh, the person's been bad. And that was a big, it was a big kind of scare for me, right? People here don't talk because in Brazil, we just say, yeah, no, sorry, I can't see it. But I appreciate in a different country, people behave differently. And I realized something about the black faith. They are having difficulties. I didn't when I needed them out. The it, it's an interesting journey, not only for Power BI and accessibility, but understanding, behavior. I think it's fascinating.
Well, and I think colorblindness is definitely an important one to mention because the prevalence of colorblindness in men is pretty high. I think it's around 8% or so. And so if you think about it, 8% means if you have 12 dudes standing in line, one of them's colorblind. And at least in the US and a lot of Western cultures, like you said, green is good, red is bad. And so it's very, very common. Another thing is on on the Power BI subreddit, every week someone's like, "Hey, roast my dashboard or whatever." And half the time I'll fire up accessibility insights for Windows so I can do the color contrast. And so often it's just terrible. Um, and I think even just starting with thinking about contrast, color blindness, and like you said, some of the labeling is a low effort, high impact kind of improvement you can make.
Even if you don't start with color blindness, right? Just think about, right, I'm using a very dark background. I'm not gonna use a navy blue to put my color, right? Let's put something like, so think about dark background, light colors for user interface, like if you have any text and your day color. And if you have a very light background, you use dark on the front of it because you need that kind of contrast. So if you start, you don't even need to think what is the contrast ratio. You don't think about that. Just that's the basics, right? If you start doing that, is already a big step to get it, making your work more accessible. And then you can think about, okay, I'm going to Google it because there are free tools that you can test. You can see the contrast. You can see is a color blindness. Does it have any color blindness like conflict? You can see and adapt. You can find alternative colors. So that's a whole new world. But just starting by considering font size, colors that have contrast, and not hiding labels. That is no a very
Yeah.
good.
Microsoft has some good docs about all that. Yeah. Anything else you want to touch on before we kind of start wrapping up? Got a few minutes left.
No,
Good.
if anyone has interest to know a little bit more about how to make uh, Power BI reports, or I would say even data visualizations, I wouldn't just limit just for Power BI. I do have a vlog and YouTube channel, although my YouTube channel is focused more on Power BI as well as I always try to put something, okay, I'm creating a matrix or conditional, but this is how you're going to make it accessible. So I try always to give a little bit of accessibility behind building something. I have this YouTube channel and a blog, and I'm trying to share things on LinkedIn as well. It's just been such a busy time. But I'm trying to share more content because I think it's very important. More people talk about it. I think it spreading awareness is always very good.
Yeah, I think even just helping people realize that there's these things that they consider, and again, a lot of it's very basic stuff that, especially with the contrast kind of piece, it doesn't require a lot of convincing that this is important. I think if you're trying to like get someone to use tab order or something, that can require more of a conversation. But if you can show them like, hey, you've got yellow on white, this is not good. That can get them to start just even considering that this is a thing to think about. Because I know until I ran into people who were blogging or doing videos on this stuff, it was never a consideration. Like maybe I had some awareness of color blindness, but even then, it was not really a consideration.
Yeah. Sometimes so you know your back of your mind that exists, but you just don't think about when you're creating your work. You just that because it's not something that you have to go through every day. So straight away, we tend to develop phase what we see, what we understand, and we have to be able to develop it for others, right? And the people who use our dashboards, they're not developers necessarily. They're people with different, circumstances, and we have to sooner we understand that, better reports you're going to make. So just think about that. Definitely, it's not for us.
Cool. So let's go ahead and wrap up. So what is your favorite and least favorite Power BI features?
So I think it's not a feature, right? DAX is a perfect feature, but at the same time, that is my favorite because you can do so much using DAX,
Yes.
but you
It's very flexible.
go wrong. So calculate is amazing, but at the same time, it is so tricky, and you have to be so careful. And I often get rushing, and we're not careful, and it takes hours to understand what have I done, why is it not working. And it's funny because I'm going through these at the moment at work. So it's kind of my favorite, but my least favorite thing at the same time.
I think that's a valid answer, honestly. I think that's a lot of people have the same experience. Um, where can people find you? Anything you wanna promote?
Yeah. So I'm going to be delivering a workshop at Pass Data Summit in Seattle now in November 2025. And it's a workshop on the pre-con. It's called User Centered Power BI Report Development, Enhancing UX and Accessibility with Elena Lebska. So I'm really looking forward. So if you are around, if you're going to attend the conference or if you're going to be in Seattle, it'd be great to see you there. You can meet me on LinkedIn as well as I mentioned, my YouTube channel and the blog for the links are on my LinkedIn. So feel free to reach out.
Cool. Very exciting stuff. Good luck with the pre-con. I know they're a lot of work, so very excited for you. Cool. Well, thank you for coming on, Juliana. I really appreciate it.